Billionaire CEO saw two little girls celebrating alone with just one cupcake. "It's our birthday," she whispered, "but we don't have a family." Four little girls sat on a bench outside a bakery. All of them wore paper hats like they believed, just maybe, that pretending could summon someone who cared. One cupcake, one melting candle, no parents, no presents, no one. He was a billionaire CEO, dressed in linen and silence. Used to making million-dollar calls, not hearing children say things that shattered the world. And yet, he sat. Not because he knew what to do, but because he couldn't walk away. This is how it began, not with love, but with a bench. And a child who asked for nothing but to be seen. The bench where he found us. The day Hugh Lawson found them, the sky was the color of a soft bruise, golden with the kind of stillness that felt like time had forgotten to keep moving. He had just left a meeting where grown men argued over millions, his phone still buzzing with alerts and unread emails. But none of that mattered, not when he saw them. Four little girls, sitting on a wooden bench outside a bakery. They weren't laughing, they weren't talking, just sitting, silent, like they were waiting for someone who had forgotten them. Each wore a paper birthday hat, two in pink dresses, two in blue. Their feet didn't touch the ground. Their faces were too still for children. And in the smallest pair of hands, a single cupcake. Its frosting was sliding sideways in the heat. A candle stood upright in the middle, unlit. No balloons, no gifts, no adults. Just them, in that tiny melting hope. Hugh had never stopped for anything, not for beggars, not for buskers, not for love, but something ancient and aching, rooted him to the ground. He walked toward them, slowly. His shadow touched the edge of the bench before he did. The girl with the cupcake looked up and whispered, "It's our birthday, but we don't have a family." She didn't say it like it hurt, she said it like it was just a fact. Like the sky is blue. And suddenly Hugh Lawson, CEO of the largest construction firm in the state, couldn't remember a single thing he had built. He sat down, not knowing why, not planning to, just sat. The silence between them was louder than any boardroom. None of the girls flinched. None ran. They just looked at him, with the kind of quiet that comes from having nothing left to lose. He cleared his throat, words tangled in years of avoidance. "I'm sorry," he finally said. That's all he had. That's all he could give. But then he added something that surprised even himself. "I can be your family." They didn't nod, didn't ask how, didn't even smile, but they didn't say no either. That night, Hugh returned to his penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows, polished floors, silence so clean it rang in his ears. He didn't turn on the news, didn't return calls. He just stared at the photo he'd snapped on his phone. The one he took without thinking, of four girls on a bench, legs swinging, trying to turn sugar and silence into a birthday. He zoomed in on the image. He couldn't look away. He didn't sleep. The next morning, he made the call. Child Services told him their names. Ellie, Grace, Lily, Mia. Identical quadruplets, 7 years old, no parents, no relatives, no one. And then came the part that stuck like a stone in his throat. They're likely to be separated. That phrase, likely to be separated, kept echoing in his head, like an alarm no one turned off. He pictured them, not laughing, not playing, just waiting. Still in those hats, still holding hands like survival depended on it. He had built towers that touched the skyline, but that moment, that one moment, made him feel the smallest he had ever been. So he did something he hadn't done in years. He canceled everything, cleared his calendar, and whispered to himself, "They don't need a building, they need a home." What kind of man builds the world and forgets to build a place for love? Progress. The one cupcake. Hugh Lawson stood outside the Family and Child Services building in clothes that didn't match the air around him. The navy suit was crisp, his shoes silent and polished. His watch could pay someone's rent for a year. But his hands were shaking. He didn't have an appointment. He didn't know the process. He only knew he'd seen something he couldn't unsee. Inside, the walls were dull gray, the kind of gray meant to be neutral but always felt like surrender. The receptionist looked up. Not startled, not rude, just tired. "Can I help you, sir?" He swallowed. "Died a bakery. I want to foster them." Her eyebrows lifted slightly, as if she'd heard worse. But also, maybe not quite this. "You mean today?" "No, I mean..." He took a breath. "I want to adopt them, all 4. She blinked. "Do you know their names?" He nodded. "I do now." The meeting room was small, with chairs that looked like they'd been sat in by stories no one wanted to retell. The caseworker entered 10 minutes later. A woman in her 50s with strong eyes and a clipboard that looked heavier than it should be. They're sisters, identical quadruplets, 7 years old. Ellie, Grace, Lily, Mia. Recently orphaned. Their mother passed from cancer. No father listed. No family stepped up. She paused, then continued. "They're in a temporary group home. It's been difficult. The girls won't sleep unless they're all in the same room. They've had night terrors. One foster home already tried to separate them." Hugh leaned forward. "Don't," he said. "Don't separate them. Ever." The caseworker narrowed her eyes. "Mr. Lawson, do you have any experience with children?" "No." "Trauma training?" "No." "Why now?" He hesitated, then spoke the truth. "Because when she said they didn't have a family, I realized neither did I." That night, Hugh walked through the wing of his house he never used, the one with empty guest rooms and windows that always stayed closed. He opened every curtain. Then he drove to the furniture store, not online, not delegating, and spent hours running his hand across soft quilts and tiny pillows with foxes and stars. He didn't know what they'd like, but he knew what he would have wanted as a child. Something warm. Something that said, "You belong here." He chose lavender paint for the walls. Then pajamas. Toothbrushes. 4 of everything. He didn't think about meetings. He didn't think about the headlines. He thought about 4 paper birthday hats and 1 cupcake and how no one had noticed. 2 days later, they arrived. The caseworker walked in first, then the girls. They were smaller than he remembered. All 4 holding hands. Ellie, the tallest, held a backpack shaped like a cat. Grace's sleeves were too long. Lily had her thumb tucked between her lips. Mia, the one who spoke at the bench, carried a folded drawing, clutching it like a passport. They didn't run into the room. They stood quietly, eyes wide, waiting to see if this was another trick. Hugh knelt, slowly. "Hi," he said. "You probably don't remember me." "We do," Mia whispered. "You had shiny shoes," Lily added. Ellie stepped forward. "Do we have to stay in different rooms?" "No," Hugh said. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to." They glanced at each other. Silent conversation. Then Grace stepped closer, her voice so soft he almost missed it. "My name is Grace," she said. Lily followed. "I'm Lily." "Ellie." "Mia," the last one whispered, unfolding the paper in her hand. It was a picture. 5 stick figures. 4 little girls holding hands. 1 taller figure to the side. It wasn't labeled, but it was clear. They had saved a place for him. That night, Hugh didn't sleep. Not because he was worried, but because for the first time in years, he wasn't alone. How do you build a future when the people who need it most don't even believe they're allowed to hope? Chapter 2. We Don't Let Go. Hugh had expected the house to feel louder with children in it. But it didn't, not at first. The girls didn't make noise. They barely spoke. They moved in soft footsteps, looking at everything. The pale lavender walls, the rows of stuffed animals, the stacks of books and puzzles, like it might disappear if they touched it too hard. He stood in the doorway of the room he had prepared and watched them enter. They didn't run to the beds. They didn't jump or squeal. They stood close together, 4 shadows fused by shared fear, blinking into the light. Ellie stepped in first, always the one to protect. She walked over to the bookshelf and ran her fingers along the spines, not reading the titles, just checking they were real. Grace stayed near the door, twisting the drawstring of her hoodie. Lily circled the edge of the room once, then returned to Mia's side. And Mia? Mia just stared at the window. "It's bright here," she whispered. Hugh cleared his throat. "I can close the curtains, if that helps." Mia shook her head. "It's okay. I just forgot what bright feels like." Later that evening, he made grilled cheese for dinner. Not because he didn't have a private chef, he did, but because he couldn't imagine explaining what these girls needed to anyone else. He had never buttered bread before. It was messier than expected, but the smell of crisping cheese made Lily's stomach growl, and she immediately flushed red with embarrassment. Grace caught her hand and gave a gentle squeeze. "We're allowed to be hungry here," Grace said. Hugh set the plates down carefully. 4 triangle-cut sandwiches, apple slices, 1 cup of lemonade each. The girls sat down at the kitchen island, still in their coats. "You can take those off," he said gently. They didn't move, so he said nothing else and started eating, quietly. Eventually, Ellie slid her coat off. Then the others followed. It was like watching a field of flowers bloom, one petal at a time, reluctant, unsure, but still reaching for light. The first bedtime was chaos wrapped in silence. They wouldn't separate, that much was clear. "I'll bring in more blankets," Hugh offered. Ellie narrowed her eyes. "We're not scared of the dark." "I know. We just don't like being alone." "I know," he said again, softer. Within 20 minutes, all 4 girls were curled into the queen-size bed Hugh had originally intended for just 2 of them. They refused to sleep under separate blankets, so he brought in his own comforter and laid it across the pile of small bodies. Mia was already half asleep, clutching a fox plush tighter than breath. Hugh didn't leave the room. He grabbed a pillow from the armchair and lay on the floor beside the bed, facing the ceiling. The carpet itched. His back ached, but it was the best he'd felt in years. And then, it happened. A whisper, Lily's voice. "Are you staying?" He didn't move, just answered into the dark. "Yes." "For how long?" He thought about it. About lawyers. About timelines. About systems. "Until you tell me not to." Pause. Then Ellie's voice. "Then you'll be here forever." And for the first time, he believed maybe he could be. At 2:18 a.m., he woke to a scream. Grace. She was thrashing in her sleep, legs kicking, tears already running down her cheeks. "I'm sorry I lost it," she shouted. "I didn't mean to forget. Please don't go." Hugh sat up fast, reached for her without thinking. "Grace," he said, kneeling beside the bed, "it's just a dream." She startled awake, gasping, eyes wild. "You're safe," he said again. "You're here. I'm here." She clung to his arm like a lifeline. Behind her, Mia stirred, whimpered, then curled tighter into Lily's side. Ellie was already sitting up, rubbing her sister's back. "She dreams about our mom," Ellie murmured. "Sometimes she forgets her voice, and it makes her panic." Grace was shaking. Hugh didn't try to stop it. He let her cry, tucked her hair behind her ear, and whispered the only thing that made sense. "You're not alone." Over the next few days, the house began to change. Not in decor, but in temperature. There was warmth now, and noise. Soft noise. Whispered jokes. Lily's humming in the hallway, Ellie narrating her drawings like a quiet storybook. Hugh started rearranging things. He moved his office downstairs so he could be closer during the day. He pushed back meetings, learned how to set up a visual schedule, bathed them in a rhythm, morning charts, bath story song at night. He did the voices, even when it felt ridiculous. One afternoon, while reading The Gruffalo, he slipped into a silly British accent. Grace burst out laughing, the kind that hiccups midway and ends in a snort. The other girls froze, then looked at her like she'd done something wrong. But Grace just wiped her eyes and said, "He sounds like the blender." Lily giggled. Ellie cracked a smile, and Mia whispered, "Read it again." By the end of the week, they had chosen beds, claimed blankets, decorated walls with their own drawings. Hugh found one taped to the fridge, 5 stick figures again. This time, the tallest had a blue tie. "Is this me?" he asked Lily. She nodded. "You don't smile yet." He laughed, fair. He started noticing things most people miss. Ellie always looked behind her when they left a room, just to check no one was being left. Grace kept trying to save uneaten food. Lily needed her shoes exactly lined up at the door. Not OCD, just control. Something stable. And Mia? Mia never asked for anything. So one morning, he knelt in front of her and handed her a drawing pad. "No reason," he said. She took it like it was made of glass. One night, Ellie had a meltdown. Grace accidentally tore a picture she'd drawn, a picture of their mother. It was just the corner. But Ellie screamed, threw it across the room, and locked herself in the bathroom. Hugh didn't knock. He just sat outside the door and waited. When she opened it an hour later, her eyes were puffy, voice wrecked. "She was wearing that dress the day we said goodbye," she said. "I thought if I drew it perfectly, she'd come back." He looked at her and said the only thing that didn't sound like a lie. "Love doesn't live in paper, it lives in memory, and memory can't be torn." She didn't answer, but that night, she laid her head on his shoulder during story time. Mornings remained the hardest. They woke up confused, panicked, sometimes crying, until Hugh started writing notes. Just small things. "You are brave. You are loved. You belong here." He tucked them under pillows, in lunch boxes, taped one to the bathroom mirror. By the second week, he found a reply in his jacket pocket. Crayon, all caps. "You're the best dad even if you don't know how to make braids." He laughed so loud it scared the cat. One afternoon, Mia wasn't in her room. He found her in the laundry closet, curled up next to a basket of warm clothes. "It smells like her," she whispered. He didn't ask who. He just sat beside her, back against the wall, and said nothing. Sometimes love looks like silence. Sometimes healing means letting a child sit with ghosts until they're ready to leave. That night, Hugh stayed up late, watching the security camera footage of the hallway. Not for safety, just to see them. The way they peeked into each other's rooms before bed. The way Ellie waited for Mia to fall asleep before turning off the light. The way Grace picked up Lily's dropped sock and smoothed it, even though no one saw. He leaned back, heart aching. These girls didn't just survive together. They only survived together. And if the world tried to pull them apart again, he didn't know what he'd do. The next morning during breakfast, Ellie asked suddenly, "What if someone comes to take us away?" Hugh froze, spoon halfway to the cereal bowl. "No one's coming." But they did before. He set the spoon down, looked at her, at all of them. "No one's coming," he repeated, firmer this time. "You're here, with me. That doesn't change." Grace said, "Even if we mess up?" "Even then." Lily's voice was soft. "Even if we don't get better?" "You don't have to get better," Hugh said. "You just have to be here." They stared at him. He didn't expect them to believe it yet. But maybe they would start to. That evening, when he walked into their room to say goodnight, he found something taped to the wall above their bed. Crayon, colorful, 5 stick figures, all smiling. This time, they'd drawn in a 6th. A woman. Long hair, pink dress. He didn't know who had drawn it. But he knew what it meant. Someone had made space. Not just for him now, but maybe for something more. What do you do with children who won't let go of each other, except hold on tighter yourself? Chapter 3. Nightmares and Routines. Hugh was learning that trauma doesn't scream. It whispers. It hides in the corners. It shows up in the way 4 girls won't put their shoes away unless they're side by side, or how they flinch when a door closes too fast, or how they keep asking the same question in different forms. "Will you still be here tomorrow?" That question came every day, never directly, never with words, but it was there. In the way Ellie always waited at the top of the stairs in the morning, eyes watching the driveway as if someone might come to take them back. In the way Lily lined her socks in a perfect row, apologizing if one fell out of place. In the way Grace hoarded snacks under her pillow, just in case dinner stopped being promised. And in Mia, quiet, unreadable. Mia, who stared at nothing for minutes at a time, like she was still standing in some memory the rest of them had left behind. The first real nightmare hit on a Sunday. They'd been with Hugh just over 2 weeks. The days had begun to stretch a little softer. They had preferences now. Grace liked ketchup on everything. Ellie wanted her towels folded a certain way. Lily refused to drink anything that wasn't in the blue cup. Mia didn't speak much, but when she did, her words landed like tiny stones across still water. Delicate. Lasting. That night, Hugh had read Goodnight Moon in 3 different voices. Grace wanted a silly voice. Mia didn't. Ellie rolled her eyes. Lily giggled behind her hand. He got through it. Bear. The girls curled up in their chosen bed, still one bed for all 4, and he turned off the light, leaving the door cracked, just in case. At 2:12 IEM, the scream came. Sharp. Not playful, not pretend. Hugh was on his feet before he'd processed it. Grace again. But this time, it was different. She wasn't just crying, she was thrashing, her limbs fighting against something only she could see. No, I didn't forget. I didn't forget her. He dropped to his knees beside the bed. Grace. It's okay. You're safe. You're here. Her hands clawed at the blanket. She said not to forget. I tried to remember her voice, but... He placed a hand gently on her arm. It's me. It's Hugh. You're not alone. The room was thick with breath and panic. Mia sat up, pulling the blanket around her. Ellie had tears in her eyes, but didn't speak. Lily was already halfway to tears herself. He gathered Grace close. He didn't know if it was the right thing to do, but it felt right. I can't remember her voice, she sobbed into his shoulder. What if it goes away forever? He held her tighter. It doesn't go away, he whispered. Not really. It becomes part of you. Grace cried until her body gave out. She fell asleep in his arms, breath hiccuping long after her mind had shut down. That night, he didn't go back to his room. He stayed. On the floor, wrapped in a blanket, listening to 4 small heartbeats slowly calm back into trust. The next morning, none of the girls talked about it. But Lily handed him a post-it note with a drawing of a cloud and a heart and said, "This one's for your door, so you don't forget to check on us." He stuck it on his office wall, right beside a floor plan that no longer mattered. Routines, he learned, were sacred. He began charting them. Wake up, bathroom, teeth, hair, socks, cereal, backpack. He turned it into a poster, with stickers, gold stars for each finished step. Grace was obsessed. Ellie pretended she wasn't. Lily asked if there was a reward at the end. Mia didn't ask, but she watched, and when no one was looking, she placed a star beside her own name. Hugh learned how to braid hair, badly. He Googled it at night, watched tutorial videos with exhausted eyes and tired fingers. His first attempt on Ellie looked like a bird's nest. She stared at it in the mirror and said, "That's okay, it's not like we're going to prom." But she didn't fix it. She wore it all day. Bedtime became ritual. Bath. Story. Song. He rotated the books. Corduroy, The Paper Bag Princess, Charlotte's Web. He sang too, badly, off-key, sometimes whispering, sometimes barely getting through a verse. But they didn't care. Mia reached for his hand after You Are My Sunshine one night and didn't let go until she fell asleep. He sat there, hand numb, heart wide open. He reached out to a child psychologist, Dr. Evelyn Shaw. Kind voice, sharp mind, no fluff. "I'm not asking you to fix them," he told her. "Just help me understand them." Dr. Shaw smiled. "That's how you know you're already doing it right." They set up weekly visits, sometimes at the house, sometimes just Hugh, asking questions that had no easy answers. "Why won't Mia talk to me?" "She is," Dr. Shaw said. "You're just not fluent in her language yet." He started journaling, not because anyone told him to, but because the girls were starting to write him notes. Small ones, drawings, bits of stories, and he wanted to have something to give back. "So," he wrote, "Ellie has an earthquake hiding in her chest. You don't see it, but it's always rumbling. Grace is a wildfire trying to act like a candle. Lily builds rules around her like armor. Mia, she's the space between stars. You think it's empty, but it holds everything together." One evening, Grace dropped a plate during dinner. It shattered across the floor. She froze. Hugh expected a scream, a panic, a shutdown. Instead, she just whispered, "Sorry." So small. So afraid. He walked over, crouched beside her, and started picking up the pieces. "It's just a plate," he said. She blinked. "We can replace a plate." "But not people," she said, voice cracking. He nodded. "Exactly. So we take care of each other." Later that night, he found her drawing a new chart. It said, "Things that can break and still be okay. Plates. Bugs. Families." By week 3, something changed. Lily reached for his hand without being told. Ellie asked if they could plant flowers in the yard. Grace started humming again while brushing her teeth. And Mia, quiet, unreadable, Mia walked into his office, handed him a folded piece of paper, and left without a word. He opened it. It was a picture. The same 5 stick figures, but now they were in front of a house. And above the door, in crooked, careful letters, The next day, Hugh canceled his trip to San Diego. His assistant was furious. "I'm sorry," he said, "but there's something more important right now." She asked if he was sick. He looked at the crayon drawing in his breast pocket and said, "No, I'm finally getting better." The following Sunday, he took them to the park. Just a local one. Swings, slides, old trees. Ellie raced Mia across the grass. Grace climbed the jungle gym and declared herself queen. Lily picked dandelions and gave him one like it was treasure. They laughed. Loud, full-body laughs. It hit him like a wave how long it had been since he'd heard that kind of joy. People stared. Some smiled. Others didn't know what to make of a billionaire CEO kneeling in the grass with 4 little girls and a tiara on his head. But Hugh didn't care. He was where he needed to be. That night, they danced in the kitchen while pasta boiled over. Grace taught him a song from school. Lily spilled flour. Ellie put sprinkles on everything. And Mia, quiet, still Mia, walked over with her tiny voice and asked, "If we call you Daddy, would you be mad?" Hugh stopped, kneeling slowly, voice cracking. "No," he said, "never." "Okay," she whispered, "just checking." And then she reached for his hand. What if the scariest part of love isn't being left, but being seen and staying anyway? Chapter 4. The Woman with the Soft Voice. Hugh wasn't expecting a shift. He thought maybe this was it. Just him and the girls, finding new rhythms, healing in small, patient circles. He'd adjusted his life, canceled business trips, learned how to French braid, badly, and replaced spreadsheets with sticker charts. But the day Olivia Warren stepped into their world, something in the current changed. Not louder, not faster, just warmer. He first noticed her across the room at Grace's school. She was kneeling in front of a boy who refused to read aloud. She wasn't coaxing or commanding, she was just there, her hand flat on the table, her voice low and even. The boy eventually slid the book across the table and whispered the first word. Later, Grace tugged on Hugh's hand and whispered, "That's Miss Olivia. She helped me when I froze last week." Hugh turned, really looked, and saw a woman with her hair pulled back, no makeup, a cardigan draped around her shoulders. She looked like someone who didn't raise her voice unless it was for someone else's dignity. And she noticed things. That's what stuck. She noticed when Mia clutched her drawing too tightly. She noticed when Ellie's voice shook while reading a line about mothers. She noticed Hugh, standing behind them in the classroom doorway, unsure if he belonged here. She walked over first. "He's the dad," she said, not as a question, as a fact. He nodded, trying to be. "They're strong kids," she said, eyes following the girls. Strong kids usually come from someone who chooses them, not just raises them. It was such an odd thing to say, but it landed in him like truth. She started showing up more, not on purpose, not yet. She helped Grace after class with reading fluency. She sat beside Lily at the school fair when the crowd got too loud. She caught Ellie during a math test spiral and whispered, "Close your eyes, breathe twice. It's not a storm. It's a wave. You're not drowning." But it was Mia who changed first. Mia didn't do new people. She didn't ask for help, didn't reach out, didn't smile unless it was safe. But one afternoon, Olivia sat next to her on the rug and didn't say a word. Just opened a book, turned pages slowly, and Mia leaned against her shoulder. Just leaned. Not asking, not looking. Like her body had decided, this one is safe. That night, Hugh asked Mia how school was. She reads slow, Mia said. He paused. Miss Olivia. Mia nodded, slow in a good way. The girls started bringing her name up more. Olivia said, I'm good at rhyme words. Olivia gave me a squishy ball to help my fingers feel calmer. Olivia said if I forget something, it doesn't mean it's gone, it means I'm remembering it later. And one night, Grace asked if Olivia could come over for reading help. Just reading, nothing else. Hugh agreed. She arrived with a canvas bag of books and no assumptions. In his kitchen, she sat cross-legged on the floor while Grace read out loud. No corrections, just small nods, small smiles. Hugh stayed back, unsure of what space he held in this moment. But Olivia turned to him and said, You can read with us. It wasn't a test. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. He sat down beside Grace, book in hand, and read the next paragraph. His voice cracked slightly on the word forever. He didn't think anyone noticed. But Olivia did. After the girls went to bed, she stayed for tea. Not wine, not small talk. Tea in mismatched mugs, on a couch still sticky with popsicle residue. She looked around and said, It's not perfect, but it feels like someone stayed. He didn't know what she meant at first. So she clarified, a lot of adults show up for kids, but few stay after the storm. You stayed. That's rare. He wanted to tell her everything. How he'd failed before. How he still second-guessed everything from breakfast choices to bedtime lullabies. How he sometimes stood outside their door at night just to listen for their breathing. But he didn't say any of that. He just said, They're teaching me. She smiled. They're good teachers. The next few weeks blurred gently. Olivia came by once a week, then twice. Not because of any arrangement. She brought flashcards, reading games, story stones. Sometimes just her calm. Mia started sitting closer. Grace corrected Hugh's pronunciation once, and Olivia laughed. The kind of laugh that melts tension like snow off a windshield. And Ellie, cautious and slow, one day asked, Did you ever forget your mom? Olivia didn't answer right away. Then she said, Sometimes, but I remember how her hand felt when I held it. That doesn't go away. Ellie nodded, nothing more. But that night, she drew a picture of two hands holding each other. One Saturday morning, Hugh found all four girls on the living room floor, building a paper town. Olivia was on her knees, taping buildings together with Mia. He stood there, just watching. How natural it looked, how little effort she made to be needed. She wasn't replacing anyone. She wasn't performing. She was just there, present. Still, that night, after the girls had gone to bed, Olivia and Hugh sat on the back porch. She told him a story about a boy she once worked with who refused to speak, wouldn't say a word, until one day someone read him the same book every single day and he memorized it. Then whispered the last line. And that's how we knew, she said, sipping her tea. He'd been listening the whole time. Hugh nodded slowly. I think Mia does that. I know she does. Then he looked at her and asked, You're good at this, at them. She looked down, almost bashful. They don't need perfect. They need someone who doesn't leave. Then she looked up at him. You didn't leave. He didn't sleep much that night. Not because of the girls. Because of her. The next afternoon, the girls were coloring in the sunroom. Hugh walked past and noticed something new taped to the wall. 5 stick figures, 4 small, 1 tall man. And beside him, a 6th. Long hair, pink dress. He didn't ask who drew it. He didn't need to. What if the love you needed walked in quietly and sat on the floor beside you? Chapter 5. Please stay forever. It began with a question. A small one. The kind that lands in your chest and never leaves. It was a Thursday night. Dinner had gone mostly well, no arguments over whose turn it was to pick the song at the table, no spilled lemonade. Hugh had just finished reading Where the Wild Things Are when Mia tugged at his sleeve as he tucked her in, her voice barely above a whisper. Do moms forget their kids when they die? He froze. Mia looked up at him, her eyes clear, not panicked, just searching. like she was hoping someone could finally tell her the truth. "I don't think so," he said gently. "Are you sure?" "Can't be sure," he admitted, "but I think love remembers." She blinked once. "Even if we forget first?" The next day, Hugh found Grace sitting under the dining table. She wasn't crying, just staring at her hands. He crouched beside her, slow and quiet. "Gonna tell me what's going on?" Grace didn't move. "I got mad at Mia yesterday," she said after a pause, "because she was drawing and I wanted to play, so I yelled and she cried. But I was still mad." He waited. "I dreamed last night that Mom saw me yelling and she left again." Hugh slid onto the floor beside her. "Can I ask something?" he said. She nodded. "If Mia had yelled at you, would you stop loving her?" "No," she whispered quickly. "Never." "Then, maybe. Your mom wouldn't either." Grace looked at him, tears just beginning. "But I can't remember her voice, Hugh, only her hands, and I think that's not enough." He reached over, pressed her hand in his. "Then hold that, and I'll hold the rest with you." That weekend, Olivia came over again. She didn't bring books, just herself. The girls were sprawled on the living room floor, building towers out of couch cushions. Mia sat nearest Olivia, carefully stacking crayons into little color-coded piles. "Why do you do that?" Olivia asked, smiling. "Because the red ones are braver," Mia said. "Braver than who?" "Than the purple ones. The purple ones hide when it rains." Olivia didn't correct her, she just nodded. "That makes sense." Hugh watched from the kitchen. He didn't know how Olivia did it, how she could hear what wasn't said. Later that evening, Hugh sat across from Olivia at the table while the girls were upstairs brushing their teeth. "I don't know how to make them believe it's permanent," he confessed. "You can't," she said softly. "Not all at once. You make it true over and over, until one day, they don't have to question it." "Even Mia?" Olivia smiled. "Especially Mia." That night, a thunderstorm rolled in. The power flickered, the wind tapped branches against the windows like ghost fingers, and all four girls ended up in Hugh's room by 2 a.m. Lily had her blanket. Ellie didn't say a word, just curled up at the foot of the bed. Grace climbed in beside him without asking. And Mia stood at the doorway. She didn't speak, just held up a folded paper. It was a crayon drawing, stick figures under a house, a rainbow above, a cupcake in the corner, and written in unsteady, broken lines. "Please stay forever." He didn't cry then. He waited until they all fell asleep around him. Then, in the dark, he pressed the drawing to his chest and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere." The following day, Hugh called Dr. Evelyn. "I think we're past the emergency phase," he said. She agreed. "But you're entering something harder." "What's that?" "Hope." At breakfast, Ellie refused cereal because Hugh had bought the wrong brand. Grace cried over a lost sticker. Lily dropped a plate and ran to the hallway, convinced she was in trouble. Mia refused to eat altogether. Hugh sat with his head in his hands, unsure if he'd failed or just bent too far. Olivia stopped by to drop off a library book and found them mid-chaos. She didn't speak. She poured orange juice, cut bananas, and gently said chaos means they feel safe enough to be real. That evening, after Olivia left, Lily curled up next to Hugh on the couch. "Are we your real kids?" He looked down. "What do you mean?" "Like, when people ask, do you say we're yours?" "Yes." "But you didn't pick us from the start." "I think you picked me," he said, "and I just finally showed up." Later that night, Ellie came downstairs long after bedtime. She held a drawing, another one. It was them again. This time at the park. "I keep drawing the same people," she said. "Wait, because I'm scared I'll forget how it feels when we're together." He took the paper, folded it carefully, and said, "Then let's draw it as many times as you need." Sunday was calm. Books. Puzzles. Pancakes. The girls decorated cupcakes. Sprinkles everywhere. Grace made one with all purple frosting. "It's for the sad parts," she said. "But I gave it glitter, too." Mia handed hers to Hugh. His had no decoration at all, just a single pink heart. When he looked at her, she said, "It's plain, but it's the kind you don't throw away." He nodded. "I wouldn't." That night, Hugh found another note tucked inside his laptop case. Different handwriting. Olivia's. "They're starting to believe you. Don't stop showing up. How do you stay when the storm is inside them?" By being the place it passes through and doesn't break. Chapter 6. The Day We Got Real. The courthouse was colder than Hugh expected. Not in temperature, but in tone. The walls were the color of boiled rice, and the waiting benches made even joy feel like it needed permission to exist. The girls sat in their Sunday dresses, white with tiny embroidered daisies, each one chosen carefully days earlier with Olivia's help. Olivia had pinned Lily's braid herself that morning. Annalie refused help. Grace changed dresses 3 times before settling on the first one. Mia said nothing the entire ride there, just stared out the window, holding her drawing like it was made of light. Hugh had ironed his shirt 3 times. His hands wouldn't stop shaking, not from fear, but because today mattered. It mattered in a way no business deal ever had. When the judge walked in, the room fell still. She was older, with a face softened by time and eyes sharp enough to read truths unsaid. She greeted each girl personally, said their names gently, like they were secret spells. Then she looked at Hugh. "Mr. Lawson, do you understand the commitment you're making today?" "Yes," he said. His voice was steady, but his chest thundered. "You understand this is for life?" "I do." The judge nodded. "Would you like to say anything?" He stood, pulled out a folded piece of paper, creased and smudged from too many readings. But then he folded it again and spoke without it. "I didn't come looking for a family. I was walking past a bakery and saw 4 girls, trying to make a birthday out of nothing. 1 cupcake, 1 candle, no one to blow it out with them. They didn't ask for help, they didn't even look sad, they just waited." That moment cracked something open in me. These girls have taught me more about love, about survival, about grace, than anyone ever has. I didn't give them life, but they gave me mine back. So I ask, today, not just for permission to call them mine, but for the chance to keep showing up for all the days after this. He said. The room was silent. Then Ellie stood. "We choose him," she said. Lily nodded. "He doesn't run." Grace stood next. "He reads the same book 5 times if we ask." And then Mia, quiet, word-shy Mia, walked up to the judge and handed her the drawing. 5 people holding hands, 1 tall, 4 small, a cupcake in the middle, and written at the top in the same wobbly hand as always. Her family. The judge wiped her eye and picked up the gavel. And just before she brought it down, she said, "Let it be known, from this day forward, they are Lawson." The sound echoed in the courtroom like a heartbeat. Final. Right. Lily whispered, "Now we are real." Back at home, Hugh didn't throw a big party. Just a quiet dinner. The girls' favorite foods. Mac and cheese, homemade lemonade, cupcakes with frosting that spelled out their new last name, Lawson. Grace held hers like it might melt, then turned and whispered to Olivia, "Do you think we're allowed to keep this name forever?" "You are," Olivia said. "But what if something breaks again?" Olivia smiled. "Then we tape it. And keep going." After dinner, the girls put on what they called a name celebration show. There was dancing, spinning, singing their full names as if they'd won the lottery. Mia wore a crown made of pipe cleaners and stood in the middle of the living room, arms raised. "This is who we are," she declared. And Hugh, still in his rumpled dress shirt, heart wrecked from joy, stood behind them, watching. Like he'd just watched the universe rebuild itself from the inside out. Later that night, Olivia helped him load the dishwasher. She was quiet, but something in her hands had softened. Grace peeked into the kitchen and asked, "So, are you going to be a Lawson too?" The room stilled. Olivia froze. Hugh just smiled. "I'd like that," she said. And the girls screamed so loud the cat bolted from the laundry room. He didn't propose that night. Not yet. But the idea had already rooted itself in his heart. Not as a finish line, but as the next quiet step in the life they were building. Some people wait a lifetime to be chosen. Others just need someone to whisper their name and mean it forever. Chapter 7. Are you going to marry Olivia? They were eating spaghetti the night it happened. Not a fancy meal, just something quick Hugh had thrown together with Grace's help while Lily measured Parmesan like it was glitter. Ellie read the instructions twice to be sure, and Mia set the table with spoons upside down. Olivia was seated between Ellie and Lily, helping untangle a fork full of noodles while telling a story about a student who thought marinara was a magic word. And just as the laughter settled, Grace looked up and asked, "Are you going to marry Olivia?" Hugh choked on his water. Lily gasped. Ellie didn't blink. Mia blinked twice. Olivia, mouth full, turned pink from the neck up. She covered her face with a napkin and said, "That's a..." Very direct, Grace. Grace shrugged. "I'm just saying, she already tucks us in better than he does." Lily added, "And she doesn't burn toast." Olivia laughed, shaking her head. Hugh cleared his throat, tried to steer the conversation back to safe ground, but the girls weren't done. Ellie leaned her chin on her hand. "It's okay if you do," she said. "We already drew her in the family pictures." Later that evening, the house settled into post-dinner rhythm, dishes clinking, the sound of crayons in the sunroom. Mia humming to herself in the hallway. Hugh and Olivia stood shoulder to shoulder in the kitchen, drying the last of the plates. "Sorry about the girls," he said. She glanced over. "Why?" "They just asked what you won't." He looked at her, then away. "You make this easier," he admitted. "All of it. With them. With me." She didn't speak for a moment. Then she asked, "What scares you about it?" He didn't expect the question, but he didn't lie. "That I'll do it wrong, that I'll love too hard or not enough, that I'll break something that already knows how to..." Olivia placed the dish towel on the counter. Then she turned to him fully. "You didn't show up for a picture-perfect life, Hugh. You showed up when no one else did, and you stayed." Then she paused. "That's not the kind of love that breaks. That's the kind that builds." Later that night, after the girls were in bed, 4 small bodies curled in sleep, the scent of lavender and worn blankets hanging in the air, Hugh sat alone in the hallway, back against the wall. And when Olivia passed by with her coat draped over her arm, she paused. "You okay?" He looked up at her. "You love them," he said. "I see it." She nodded. "It's not subtle." Then, before he could lose his nerve, he asked softly, "What about me?" She blinked. She looked at him for a long moment and said, "You make this place feel like something people don't want to leave." She smiled, just slightly, and walked to the door. The next morning, Mia called her Libby Mom by accident. Or maybe not by accident at all. Olivia didn't correct her. Neither did Hugh. For the next week, something unspoken hung in the air. Olivia came by as usual, helped with homework, joined movie night. He listened to Ellie read aloud and tucked Mia's hair behind her ear when she nodded off. The girls started introducing her to others at school as our Olivia. And once, in the grocery store, Lily tugged on Hugh's coat and whispered, "Do you think she'd say yes if you asked?" He didn't answer right away, but the question followed him down every aisle. One afternoon, Ellie brought home a storybook with a wedding scene. She left it open on the coffee table, exactly on the page where the couple held hands under a tree. Hugh stared at it for a long time, then folded the corner and tucked it in his drawer. Later that night, Mia handed him a drawing. It showed 5 figures and a 6th with long hair and a crown. A speech bubble said, "I d." He looked at her. "Is this what you want?" Mia shrugged. "I want her to stay. You don't have to marry people to keep them, but I think it helps." Then she looked up at him and added, "And also, we want cake." When is the right time to say forever? Maybe when the people who need it most have already said it for you. Chapter 8. Will you marry us? It started with a whisper in the hallway. Ellie leaned close to Grace, who whispered to Lily, who told Mia, and Mia, as always, said nothing. Not out loud. But the next morning, Hugh found a question scrawled in pink crayon across the back of a cereal box. "Do you need a ring to get married, or can you just promise really big?" He stared at it, then looked up at the breakfast table. All four girls were chewing quietly, eyes fixed on their cereal, pretending like the air wasn't thick with waiting. He didn't answer. Not yet. Because the truth was, he didn't know if he was ready to give Olivia a ring. But he knew, without a doubt, that he didn't want to live another day without her. That afternoon, Ellie came into his office with a drawing. This one was elaborate, a big tree with lanterns hanging from it, 5 stick figures under it, and a picnic blanket. Above them, in looping, hopeful handwriting, "Will you marry us?" Hugh set down his pen. Ellie looked at him with no hesitation. "Do you love her?" "Then what's the hard part?" He didn't have a good answer. Ellie turned to go, then added, "She makes us soft again, that's how I know." The girls began planning in secret. Every corner of the house buzzed with whispered ideas, paper scraps, and scavenged craft supplies. Grace designed the aisle with sidewalk chalk in the backyard. Lily practiced saying, "Will you marry us?" every night in the mirror until Hugh had to excuse himself and cry silently in the bathroom. Ellie coordinated the music, a Bluetooth speaker and a playlist she titled Forever Songs. And Mia, quiet as ever, spent hours in the sunroom, coloring. Hugh didn't see the final drawing until the day of the proposal. It was a Sunday. The sky was bruised with the last blush of summer, soft golden light sliding between the trees. The girls had insisted Olivia come by for a picnic. She didn't suspect anything. Hugh wore a button-up shirt, the one she once complimented when he spilled lemonade on it, and carried a small bouquet of daisies. His hands trembled as he walked into the backyard. Lanterns swayed from branches overhead. The picnic blanket was crooked. Paper flowers littered the grass. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And Olivia, stepping through the screen door in jeans and a soft cardigan, paused mid-step. Her eyes widened. She didn't speak. She just looked at the girls lined up, each holding a note card. At Hugh, standing near the tree, holding the ring box like it weighed more than his entire company ever had. At Mia, cradling something behind her back. The girls read the cards in order. Ellie, you stayed. Grace, you listened. Lily, you helped us believe again. Mia stepped forward, opened her hands. The drawing. 6 stick figures, again. 1 taller man, 1 woman, 4 girls. And above it. Now we're really real. Then all 4 looked at Hugh. "Ask her," Lily whispered. He took a breath, stepped closer. "You came into our lives like sunlight through closed windows, quiet, warm, and exactly what we didn't know we needed." Olivia's eyes were glassy. He knelt, not because tradition demanded it, but because the moment was that holy. "I love you, not because you fixed us, but because you joined us in the middle of the mess." He opened the box. A simple gold band, a small stone, nothing flashy, just steady. "Will you marry us?" Olivia blinked once, twice, then knelt too. Wrapped her arms around all 4 girls, and Hugh, and whispered, "Yes, of course, yes." The girls shrieked. Grace jumped in the air. Lily threw paper hearts into the sky. Mia didn't say a word. She just leaned into Olivia's shoulder and smiled so wide it cracked something inside Hugh open all over again. That night, the house was filled with dancing, and apple juice in plastic cups and frosting in hair. They didn't call it an engagement party. They called it our beginning. Olivia helped tuck them in. Hugh watched her gently braid Lily's hair, kiss Grace's temple, whisper "Good night, star girl," to Mia, and pull Ellie's blanket just slightly higher than needed. When she finally sat beside him on the couch, both of them barefoot, exhausted, happy, he whispered, "You were the missing page in our story." She reached for his hand. "No," she said. "You were just waiting for someone to turn it." The next morning, Mia left a note on the fridge. Folded. Crayon. It read, "We don't feel like broken things anymore. When love doesn't knock loud, will you still open the door?" Chapter 9. The bench where he found us. 1 year later, they returned to the bakery bench, this time not with a cupcake for 1, but a family of 6. The first time he sat here, he didn't know their names. This time, they knew who they were, and who'd become. The anniversary came quietly. No fanfare, no marked date on the calendar, But Hugh remembered. He always would. 1 year ago, he had turned the corner near the bakery, a man with a meeting in his calendar, a suit pressed for perfection, and a heart so locked he'd forgotten where the key was. And there they were, 4 girls. 1 bench, 1 cupcake, and a sentence that still whispered through him in quiet hours. It's our birthday, but we don't have a family. Now, a year later, the world had changed. Not loudly, not with noise, but with presence. He didn't plan a big celebration, just a quiet suggestion. What if we went back to that bench? The girls froze at first. Then Grace grinned. Yes, she said. Let's see what it looks like now. They wore sundresses, not matching this time but coordinated like they'd whispered color codes to each other. Lily wore yellow, Grace chose green, Ellie picked blue, Mia of course wore white. Olivia packed a basket with cupcakes. 6 of them, 1 for each person, and a 7th tucked gently inside a separate container. No one asked, no one said it, but they all knew. The bakery owner, an older woman named Denise, had come to know them by now. She greeted them like old friends, placing a hand over her heart when she saw Olivia and said softly, "Back where it began." The bench looked the same, weathered wood, familiar curve in the middle, same tree overhead, casting light in patches like memory itself had paused here. The girls sat down quietly. Mia held the extra cupcake. And then, in a silence that felt sacred, she placed it gently in the middle of the bench. "For then," she whispered. No one asked what she meant, because they all knew. Hugh sat beside Olivia watching them. Ellie leaned into his shoulder. Grace hummed softly under her breath. Lily pulled a pin from her bag and started doodling in her notebook. Mia just stared at the tree above them, light dancing across her face. Then Olivia reached for his hand. "This place used to feel like an ending," she said, but it wasn't. Hugh nodded. It was the start of us. They stayed for a while, long enough to finish the cupcakes, long enough to watch other people walk by, people who didn't know the story written into the wood grain beneath them. And then, when the sun began its slow slide behind the rooftops, Ellie stood and said, "Let's go home. Not your home. Or the house, but home." And the word hit Hugh like a prayer. That night, back on their porch, barefoot and sticky from frosting and wind, Hugh sat with Olivia while the girls played tag under the string lights. He watched them, legs flying, laughter tripping over itself, hair wild and free. And he whispered, "I never told you what made me stop that day." Olivia looked over. Right. He stared out at the yard, remembering. They weren't crying, that's what got me. They weren't even asking, they were just waiting. Like they already knew people walked past. She pressed her hand over his. "And you didn't?" "No," he said, "because the moment I saw them, I remembered what it felt like to sit in a world that never called your name." He looked at her, but then they said mine. Later, when the girls were in bed, they sat beneath the stars with hot tea and quiet shoulders touching. And Olivia whispered, "They saved you too, didn't they?" "Yes," he said, "and I think that bench saved all of us. When you sit in the place that broke you, and all you feel is peace. Is that what healing really is?" Chapter 10. The Wedding Under the Lights. Under soft lanterns and laughter, the girls dance barefoot. And Olivia whispers, yes. Not to perfection, but to home. The first time he found love, it left him. The second time, it stayed. The wedding wasn't grand. There was no cathedral, no tuxedos, no flower arrangements so large they drowned in their own importance. There were paper lanterns strung from trees. A picnic table covered in a white sheet that didn't quite fit. Cupcakes instead of a cake. And 4 little girls who ran barefoot laughing so loudly the neighbors peeked through their windows and smiled. The backyard wasn't ready, but it was theirs. And that was the only thing that mattered. The girls planned everything. Ellie choreographed the aisle walk. Race made flower crowns from grocery store daisies. Lily practiced her speech nightly in front of the mirror. And Mia, quiet Mia, spent hours on a single drawing, folded delicately in her front pocket. No one saw it, not until the vows. Olivia wore a simple white dress. No veil, No heels, just bare feet in the grass and her hair pinned with a tiny daisy from Grace's crown. She looked like summer had opened its hands and let the light settle there. And Hugh, standing at the end of that make-do aisle, felt time stop. Not in a dramatic movie-ending way, but in the quiet knowing of, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. There were only 12 guests, all of them family. Denise from the bakery, Dr. Yvonne from therapy, the girls' teacher, a neighbor who once brought them soup when Mia was sick. Each of them sat on mismatched lawn chairs and plastic folding seats, smiles soft, tears barely hidden. When the music started, Ellie's playlist, the girls walked Olivia down the aisle, each holding a corner of her hand, like they were delivering a treasure. And in a way, they were. Hugh's vows were simple. You didn't arrive in my life to complete it. You arrived to make me remember it's worth living again. You didn't rescue me, you joined us. You held the hard parts without trying to fix them. You didn't step in as their mother. You became it in every quiet way they needed. Olivia's voice trembled, but she smiled the whole time. You made a home before you asked me to join it. You didn't wait until you were ready. You showed up anyway. You learned bedtime songs and how to braid hair and what Grace needs when she cries without sound. You made love real. I never needed a fairy tale. I just needed someone to stay. Then Mia stepped forward, unfolded the drawing, held it out to the crowd as if it were scripture. 6 figures, again, this time beneath a canopy of string lights, and a banner above them that read, "We are not waiting anymore." They didn't kiss in front of a crowd. They hugged. And the girls shouted, "Now we're really real," and threw paper hearts into the sky like confetti. That night, after the last chair was folded, after Grace fell asleep on the porch swing and Ellie dozed on the stairs, Hugh and Olivia lay on the grass, under the stars. "I never thought I'd get married in a backyard," she said, smiling. "Me neither. And yet," Hugh whispered, "I've never been more home." In the quiet, Mia mumbled something in her sleep from the couch inside. Hugh listened, held Olivia's hand, and whispered back to the night, "This is what forever feels like. Maybe forever doesn't start with rings or vows. Maybe it begins when someone chooses to stay." If this story touched you, some stories don't start with a kiss or a ring. They start with a bench, a single cupcake, and the kind of silence that only children carry after the world forgets them. Hugh didn't mean to become a father. He didn't mean to change his life. He didn't even mean to stop walking that day. But he did. And sometimes the smallest decisions, the ones you don't even think are decisions at all, become the pivot point for everything that follows. He thought they were just 4 little girls on a bench. Quiet, still, not asking for anything. But sometimes the ones who ask the least are the ones who need the most. And sometimes love doesn't come with fanfare or lightning bolts. Sometimes it comes as a question so simple it breaks you. We don't have a family. He could have kept walking, as so many people had, but he didn't. He sat down, and the world shifted. This isn't a story about a rich man who saved poor children. This isn't about a woman stepping in to complete something broken. This is about what happens when people choose to stay. When someone listens without fixing. When someone sees your mess and says, "You're not too much." When someone takes your sadness, not away, but into their hands and holds it with you. Hugh didn't know how to sing lullabies. He didn't know how to comfort nightmares, or cut pancakes into the right shapes, or understand why certain pajamas were okay and others weren't. He just learned, day by day, tear by tear, drawing by drawing. Love didn't demand perfection, it only asked for presence. And Olivia? She didn't try to erase their past. She didn't force smiles or promises she couldn't keep. She came into their story like soft light at dawn, warm, unannounced, and exactly on time. Some families are made by blood. Others are drawn in crayon by the hands of children who just want someone to stay. And when those pictures start showing 6 people instead of 5, that's how you know you're home. Maybe you've known what it's like to feel invisible. Maybe someone left when they promised they wouldn't. Maybe love didn't look like what it was supposed to. But if this story touched something in you, that soft place where hope still waits, where maybe you're still sitting quietly on some version of that bench, I want to tell you something. You're not forgotten. You're not too late. And your story isn't over. There is love that leaves, and love that stays. And sometimes, staying is the most extraordinary kind of love there is. So if this story reached you, if even one sentence felt like your story in disguise, I hope you stay for the next one, because the next story goes even deeper. I'll be waiting. Same voice, same quiet truth. Same belief in love that doesn't shout, but whispers. I see you.